I'd like to introduce Graham from the John Muir Award, who's going to tell us how we can use the John Muir Award on our expeditions and our trips to add value to our trips. So over to you. Thank you very much, Graham.
Thanks, Dave, and thanks for inviting me, and hello to everyone. If nothing else, I've had a fantastic catch up with Dave. I've never met Dave before, but it turns out that we were slalom paddlers within about a year or two back in the end of the 70s. Sorry, Dave. Right, I'll start off and share my screen. And as Dave said, chip in with questions, and he'll either interrupt me or leave them to end as seems fit at the time. Let's make sure I get the right screen. We're on. I took this invite. Dave, Sarah and Dave contacted me and said that Dave was a fan of the John Muir Award, and in fact has actually achieved a John Muir Award, and I've just seen his certificate, which is even better. And he very kindly asked me to come on and talk about the award. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. I hope you've got your beer and popcorn ready, and sit back and enjoy. At least as long as I can move this box here so I can get to the controls, that'll be better. Yeah, there we go. So if you read the blurb, you'll have noticed that I started out with Manchester Canoe Club. So I am a paddler. I wouldn't say I'm a regular paddler at all now, but throughout my life I've been in the outdoors, on the water, and probably now more of mountaineering and fell running. So this is what it was like when I started paddling. Some of you will have, if you've read the bio, you'll have seen the reference to Ray Carverley and Harry-Shock buoyancy aids, which will either bring a smile to your face, or you'll think, what on earth is he talking about? What's a buoyancy aid? Why is it a Harry-Shock buoyancy aid? I think they were the kind of first ones which actually, when you put them on, they made you feel like they fitted and were suited to the job. And I think came from Ray Carverley, who was British champion at the time, who helped design them. So that's what canoeing was like for me then. And if you're wondering where that is, that's Stone Novice Event, 1972. I think it was probably my first event. Other than my local event, I was in Manchester Canoe Club, so of course I paddled down at Marple on the River Goyt most of the time. So yeah, so that's what kayaking used to be like for me. Whereas this is what it tends to be like for me now. So yeah, like I say, I've worked and played in the outdoors all my life. But the focus of that has shifted over the past 13 years, or over that time, more from the kind of, when I was 10, I went all through my teenage years, I was kind of, kayaking's all about competition, skills, getting better. It's got the social side, but really it was about getting a better result. And over the years, it's shifted to more of a, well, it's a great way of getting out to places, enjoying ourselves, recognizing our place in nature and how we should act in that place, which is kind of where I am now. And although a lot of my working background was with the Outward Bound Trust and various other outdoor education positions, I've been with the John Muir Trust now for 13 years, and that's what I'm going to talk about, the John Muir Trust and its award scheme, the John Muir Award. But when I was looking at these pictures, it struck me that there's a kind of spectrum here. So there's a start with a focus on skills, and I think it's possible, probable that young people, when they start paddling, that they get gripped by or those who do get gripped by it, get gripped by the kayaking. They want to learn how to do it better. They want to to those skills. And for me, it was, you know, making the gates, surfing the stopper, getting the breakout, the competitive challenge. And then, as the previous photo suggested, it's more about the journey for me now, joy in using a kayak to explore and appreciating the place and surrounding nature. And having got those two, it occurred to me that there's a kind of spectrum here with another end of the spectrum, which would be a very utilitarian, using a kayak as a means of transport. I didn't have a photo myself of anybody using a kayak for transport. And so I kind of Googled and came up with Kirsty Devlin, who's begun kayaking from Sale in Greater Manchester, which, having put it up, then made me think, is that a relation of Mike Devlin, who I think was involved with the BC, involved in canoeing heavily? I'm not quite sure. Could well be. Anyway, the point being that there was this kind of spectrum of skills and competition at one end, utilitarian at the other end, and then the bit in the middle, which is kind of enjoyment, journey, those kind of things. Perhaps one where a lot of us end up. But the other side to that is I kind of thought, well, that's too simple, really, because what I want is for those people who are either end of that spectrum to also be enjoying it at the same time, and appreciating the place in nature, whether they're gaining skills or whether they're commuting to work. And I'm sure they do, but it's a lot easier to relate to in that middle kind of making a journey ground, if you like. But yeah, I think we need to look for enjoyment of place, appreciation of nature, and apply care and responsibility across the board. And for introducing people to kayaking, I would say, no matter whether it's competitive or not, yeah, we need care and responsibility. And in fact, relatively recently, there's been the example of, and I will probably get the name wrong because I'm not absolutely on top of my kayaking now. Is it Etienne Scott? Who's is that right, Dave?
Yeah, Etienne's a Canadian paddler.
Yeah, so he's been instrumental in starting up a it's not just kayaking, but it's an elite athlete organization saying that we need to tackle climate change and environmental issues. So I kind of I always think it's fantastic when I see people who are at an extreme end of a sport, but behind that they still appreciate where they're doing it and the impact that they have. So I'll get on to the John Muir Award now, and this is kind of, I'm afraid you'll get less of the quirky old slides now, but more of the kind of normal presentation that I do. So the John Muir Awards, it's an environmental award scheme, whether you've heard of it or not, and it's part of the John Muir Trust. The kind of strap line there in the middle, connect with, enjoy, and care for. So it's about getting people outside. I'm going to kind of talk about the sort of concept and ethos and what people do. There is a whole process side to it behind it, which is a little bit more the paperwork, which I kind of won't go into. And if you want to find out more about that, then you can go onto the website or you can get in touch with me afterwards. So the John Muir Trust's work covers wildland management and protection. It covers policy and campaigning and engagement. I'll come back to other trust work later, but the award is their main engagement initiative. It started in the mid-90s. And the reason it started was that at that time, 0.1% of 12 to 24-year-olds in Scotland, it started in Scotland, although it's UK-wide now, were involved in conservation organisations. So hardly anyone, in other words. There's a kind of flip side to that as well, is in that conservation organisations weren't particularly trying to engage young people either. So the two things just weren't meeting. So the award was kind of designed to bring those two together. Obviously, being an organisational award within the John Muir Trust, it contributes to their vision, which is all about valuing wild places for their own sake, but also for the sake of society and for nature. So for nature and everyone. It's not just a conservation award, it promotes personal development as well. And one of the things I kind of like to think about that is, actually we don't need thousands and thousands of conservationists working in conservation. What we need is thousands and thousands of bankers, doctors, engineers, dentists, who are all conservationists, if you like. So actually, everybody in society needs to have some kind of respect for nature. And that's what it kind of hopes to do, is no matter where your path in life, take that path, but have an ethos of caring for the natural world at the same time. In terms of scale, launched in 1997. 100,000 people had achieved an award by 2010. 1/3 in 2018. And now, well, not now, as in not this year or last year, about 40,000 a year across the UK. About 25% you might loosely call some kind of inclusion, kind of a sector of society, with an even gender split as well. And those are the kind of principles that underpin our work. And particularly important to me is that it's open to as many people as possible. There are criteria, so they to be met, as in any award, but it's open for anyone to try that. We don't dictate what people do, and I'll come on to more about that. It's more about applying what you do to the award. The other thing that's important to us is that it's free, which reduces barriers. Obviously, the trust and the award has to be funded in some way, and I'll just touch on that later as well. So what does it look like? So when you do a John Muir Award, you have 4 challenges to meet. Discover, explore, conserve and share. And I'll go into a little bit more about what that might look like. But what it doesn't look like is you saying to the John Muir Trust, I want to do a John Muir Award, and us saying, okay, do this, that and the other. It's more, you have your activities that you do, and you apply those things to your activities. So that might sound a bit kind of vague, and I'll come on to some examples in a minute, so you get more of a picture. There are different levels to it as well. So at the first level, there has to be 4 days or equivalent engagement. At the second level, there has to be 8 days with a greater degree of personal responsibility for the individuals involved. And then the third level is 20 days or equivalent over at least 6 months. So a long-term kind of commitment to it. So what does it kind of look like? So if we kind of apply those 4 challenges to what's going on here, we've got this is a school group. It's actually Moorside School from Lancaster, and they're staying at Hawes End Centre, which is at the north end of Derwentwater. Can't quite see it on that picture, although it's just kind of hidden at the end. This is, if you know the lakes, this is the Lake District with Skiddaw in the distance there, and they're looking down the Newlands Valley on top of a hill called Dalehead. So they did the John Muir Award during their residential week. And if we look at the challenges, the Discover bit is about the places that they go during that activity. So broadly speaking, you would say that's the Lake District. You might narrow it down and say, well, the Lake District around Derwentwater and the fells there. So that's the kind of discovery bit, is place, and getting people to think about what's special about that place. So what are the special qualities of the Lake District around Borrowdale and Derwentwater? Well, I mean, I could go on about that for ages. The open fells, the opportunity, paddling on the lake. There's lots of fantastic enjoyment to be had. But if you kind of, and it could be anything for any, it could be a different thing for each one of those people, actually, what makes it special to them. And I quite like this thing about what makes it special, because of course they're in a national park here. If there's nothing special, then there's nothing to look after. And I like this approach of getting people to think about what's special, because national parks also have special qualities. So if you went on the Lake District National Park website, you would actually be able to find out what the special qualities of the Lake District National Park are. I don't like the idea of telling people what they are. Actually, I like the idea of them thinking about what's special to them and why it needs looking after. So that's the kind of discover challenge, if you like. It's kind of identifying where you're going and what's special about it. The explore challenge is kind of two aspects to it, I suppose. There's the skills that you might have to learn to go and explore that area. So for these kids here, it'll be the hill walking skills. During the week, they'll have also paddled on the lake, on Derwentwater. So there's all those kind of skills about just looking after yourself in the outdoors. But there's also the knowledge that you might pick up along the way, or deliberately go and seek out. So I would expect the outdoor centre staff here have probably been answering questions or telling them something about maybe the sheep farming that they've seen up on the fells, things about what grows there, what lives there, who else uses the fells. So there could be many aspects of exploring a landscape which are much deeper than just thinking, well, what makes it special to me? So that's the explore challenge. And then based on the kind of identifying something that's special about the place and learning a bit more about it, there's the conserve challenge, which is, well, what can we do to look after this landscape? Now, obviously, I'm based in Cumbria as the Cumbria John Muir Award manager, so I know pretty much exactly what these people did, or what they generally do at Cumbria Outdoors. And they probably, they probably picked some litter up on their walk, to be honest, but that wouldn't be the main thing. They were involved in two different things. One was footpath drain maintenance, which is something that outdoor centre groups quite often do because they can do it kind of without any expert input. And then the other thing is, in conjunction with the National Trust, I suspect they were involved in removing rhododendron as a non-native invasive in the oak woodlands along the side of Derwentwater. So they've spent some time putting something back, taking active responsibility for it. And then there's the fourth challenge is the share challenge. And that kind of goes from everything from, there's actually some really valuable sharing in when they're kind of sitting down afterwards, maybe over dinner or whatever, just talking about what they enjoyed and what they did that day, because it reinforces their own kind of memories and understanding. But of course, that would go on to some, maybe the different groups at the centre would kind of present to each other, and they would be passing information back to the school, or maybe they put something in the school newsletter or whatever. So there'd be a much wider aspect of sharing as well. So sharing about the landscape and about what we need to do to look after it. So those are the four challenges. And there's so I've kind of gone in detail about what that kind of group does, but that group could equally be one on the water, Outward Bound Ullswater, frequently paddle around on the lake and do they do canoe-based litter sweeps of the lake, It could equally be a D&V group on a journey down the River Wye or something like that. Or it could be me and my friends, or a guided group on the west coast of Scotland, sea kayaking. You can apply that kind of ethos, that kind of framework to a whole wide variety of groups. And as long as if they're connecting with the outdoors and they want to find out a bit more and they're going to look after it, then you've got the basis to fit into that framework of 4 challenges. So, yeah, you've got your activity, you've got the framework, and people need to meet the challenges. And the one thing which I haven't mentioned, of course, is an awareness of John Muir. Because if you got a John Muir Award, you'd kind of want to know who he was, really. And he was, actually, I'll come back to this because I've got a slide of him, so we'll come back. So an awareness of John Muir as well. So we have a pretty wide range of people taking part. I mean, I've mentioned school groups already. I've mentioned that it could actually be a group of friends. It could be, tends to be, for schools, tends to be later stage of primary and older. Who else have we got on here? We've got school group, extended family group. These 2 in the top left were, I think they're working on a project in London, central London. So it doesn't have to be out in anywhere with big wild open spaces. It could be focused on somewhere quite small. So yeah, quite a range of people. And where? Well, kind of everything from school grounds. I think this is a school who have an allotment in their school grounds, actually the one on the left, and the one on the right, some people may know if you've paddled in Scotland a lot. So that's actually, the sea kayaks is a bit of a red herring really, because we're on fresh water and it's paddling into the mountain is Sylvan in the background. It's a great trip actually to do on the inshore to paddle. It's about half a day's paddle down through 2 locks to get to Sylvan to climb the next day. It's quite remote. So it could be, yeah, it could be an adult group, could be a group of friends, it could be a led expedition. And it could be anywhere, urban, school grounds to wildland. So a little bit of background here. So, and 2 maps. The map on the right, lots of dots. That gives you an extent of the activity which goes on. The dots actually represent not places where people have done the award. They actually represent organisations who have used the award. So it might be a school, might be a youth group, it might be a university group, could be a community group. So it's the kind of based on the organisation who's used the award. The map on the left, I'll talk a little bit more about the colours of those later on in relation to the John Muir Trust actually, but the numbers represent the properties which the John Muir Trust own or manage. So if you want a quick rundown, 1 is Sandwood Bay, right up in the far northwest of Scotland. 2 is Quinag or Quinag, as some people will know it. 3 is on Skye, Sconser and Torrin Estate. 4 is Knoydart. 5 is part of the Nevis, part of Ben Nevis and Upper Glen Nevis. 6 is Schiehallion. 7 is Glenlude. And 8 is the only property we manage in England, which is Glenridding Common in the Lake District, which we don't own. All the others we own. The other numbers are partnerships through which the award works. So sort of going south to north. So I'll just give some examples. So we have a partnership with the Cairngorm National Park, with the Lake District National Park, the London Wildlife Trust, Outward Bound Trust, so various different organisations. Just to be clear, we don't have staff who deliver the John Muir Award. It's any organisation can use the award. Any freelance instructor could use the award and do it with a group. We kind of provide the framework and the management of it. So who was John Muir? So I come back to him. He's so yeah, 1838 to 1914. He was a Scot actually, and his family emigrated to the States when he was about 11 or so, and he kind of the thing he's really known for. He was an adventurer and an ecologist. He was kind of known for being a bit wacky. He was an inventor. Tied himself to the top of a tree in a storm just to see what it was like. But he was kind of known for his campaigning. He recognised that the forestry companies were just stripping out wood and destroying woods without kind of any mitigation of their work, if you like. And he led the kind of charge for national parks in the United States. So I believe the first national park was actually in South Africa, but it was much more widely known in the States that Yellowknife was the first one, or sorry, Yellowstone, sorry, was the first national park. And then the one that John Muir is kind of particularly associated with is Yosemite, of course. So he's kind of known as the kind of father of the national park movement, if you like. I do find it makes me smile a little bit because he, you know, right back then he had the vision that we should have national parks, and his inspiration, or you know, some of his inspirations were Wordsworth and Ruskin, who and Wordsworth, of course, had this thing about describing the Lake District as a sort of national property. So you know, we're going back to the late 1800s here. John Muir managed to, you know, kind of, they got national parks going in the States in the late 1800s, start of the 1900s. Yet it took us another 60 years here to get national parks in, what was it, 1959 or something. So the kind of idea had to come from here, go over the pond for them to create national parks, to then come back here to actually get them here. So he's a historical character, but actually when you start looking into his life, he's pretty inspirational and very relevant now as well, because as we know more and more, the things, how we impact the natural environment now, comes back to bite us, if you like, and he recognised that. Just one or two more things about the award before I talk about the John Muir Trust a little bit more. So kind of why people use the John Muir Award, and I kind of wondered whether to include this slide, but I kind of thought, well, actually, if I've got an audience mainly of paddlers, we're probably people who are already out enjoying the outdoors, so we kind of understand it really. You know, we do some of this. And you might see yourself of this in a kind of, we do some of this, we'd like to do more. So you might involve people in the outdoors, you know, you might think, well, actually the John Muir Award could be a way of giving that a bit of a framework to include some paying back and care and responsibility. You might already do all of that, but the award might kind of put a nice package around it, if you like, and reward people for getting involved. So yeah, people come in for all sorts of reasons. The kind of top of there is we don't do any of this outdoor nature stuff yet. It tends to come from maybe youth groups who are not based near the outdoors, and they often we can find that it's something that they kind of think, oh, okay, here's something that can kind of help us get people involved in the outdoors. I mentioned there was a bit of process behind it, and I'm not going to go into any detail. There's a way of registering to do the award. There's a way of presenting to us how you're going to achieve the award against the 4 challenges, what activities you're going to do. There's a process of us agreeing that with you, and there's a process of at the end of wrapping it up and you asking for some certificates and us getting them out to you. It's actually pretty light on the bureaucracy. There's one proposal form which you send in. There's one certificate request form at the end, and there'll be some discussion in between. But in terms of paperwork, essentially there's 2 forms. So yeah, feel free to get in touch with me afterwards if you want to know more about it. We do actually run Introduction to the John Muir Award courses where we kind of go into that side of it more. I think we've got one in March, and we'll have another. We haven't got a date yet, but we'll have another one in April and May. They're kind of 2.5-hour online courses advertised on our website.
Hi, Graham.
Yeah.
Ben's got a question that I think is quite pertinent to the bit that we're on at the moment, if you don't mind. So Ben, if you could unmute your mic and ask a question. It's a great question.
Great, thanks, Dave. Yeah, Graham, sorry.
That's okay.
So basically, I run an approved activity provider, and I'm an AAP with the Duke of Edinburgh's award. So I've got a license with D to run the expeditions, and we run them in schools. I'm based down in London, and we generally run bronze and silvers in the southeast, and then golds. We're usually paddling along the Thames, actually, on the golds in bell boats. But I've been thinking of John Muir for quite a while now. I've been thinking of John Muir as an alternative to D. I sort of feel all my eggs are in the D basket, and actually I'd quite like to get them into some other baskets. And I really like the idea of John Muir, especially with some of the schools that we work with, that I think D is not really ticking the box for, particularly some of the special needs schools that we work with in terms of the timescales and everything like that. So basically, as a commercial organisation, can I run John Muir Award? I noticed right at the beginning you said it's free, but the reality is we charge kids to come on these expeditions because of the costs involved. So can I run John Muir as some kind of commercial organisation? And is there some kind of registration process, and are there costs involved and all those sort of things for a commercial organisation?
Okay, thanks, Ben. Great question. And I think I can help you.
By the way, sorry, I should say, if that's too big a question, I can always have an email conversation with you later on in the week.
No, I'm happy to address that. I'm just going to flick on to keeping it free.
Okay.
So, yeah, as a commercial organisation, you can run the John Muir Award. You said, is there a way to register? You don't actually need to register. All you have to do is download a proposal form, which on one side is kind of, here's who we are, here's how we're going to, here's the group we're working with, and a very brief summary of what you're going to do with them. And then on the back, it's got the 4 challenges. Here's how our activities meet these 4 challenges. And you send that off to us. So if you do that once or twice in a year, we wouldn't bat an eyelid. There would be, you know, it's free to the end user. Clearly, we have to make ends meet. So if you just for example, in my area, Cumbria, Outward Bound in my area do about 1,000 awards a year. So they do contribute. They basically donate to the John Muir Trust. We don't charge them, they donate. They also do some other things. They actually get printed their own certificates, which we hold, and it has their logo on as well. We would kind of only do that once people are going to be using quite a lot. So you can see ways there of supporting us: make a donation, join as a member, contribute to resource costs, those kind of things. One of the things about the cost of it is, you said, well, you know, you have to charge for your activities, and that's fine. Obviously you do, but what we don't want people to do is to say, I'll use an example I know. So Outward Bound say to a school, here's the cost of a residential package at Outward Bound Ullswater. And here's the cost for the residential package with the John Muir Award. It shouldn't be any extra. Because there's no actual cost. There doesn't have to be any other cost other than if you choose to donate or become a member or whatever. So, and to charge them extra would be charging the end user. Now, there's other ways around that. If you, and I don't know how this would work for a commercial organisation, but if you had a way of accessing funds or anything, then, so if anyone's listening from a charitable organisation or in a commercial organisation who are able to access funds, if you're making a funding bid and you say, we're going to use the John Muir Award to recognise the achievement of the people we're working with, then it would be helpful for us, and really shouldn't be any skin off your nose, to put in some money to cover some resource costs and management costs, our time, into that bid. And if that was the case, then the best thing to do is to talk to us beforehand, because we have a guide, so it might be if you put into that bid, we're going to have some training from the John Muir Award for our staff. Then we have a cost for training, which covers all our time and expenses. So talk to us if that's the case. But other than that, yeah, absolutely, you can please use it. You mentioned special schools. It gets used by a very wide range of special schools, and as I suppose as the Duke of Edinburgh as well. But I have one of my providers is Beaumont College, who the charity Scope, and the people have cerebral palsy, and they have people who are communicating through touchpads on wheelchairs, and they're doing activities. And there's some judgment comes in here, because clearly I don't know what the students experiencing, but their expert staff do. So it is, I just have to trust to them and say, actually, this person does actually understand what they're doing and why. So it can be very adaptable, and that kind of what you're doing and why is an important aspect of it. It's not an attendance certificate. People need to have some understanding of what they're doing and why. Okay, does that answer it, Ben?
Yeah, just very quickly though, sorry, is to say, so can I, basically at the moment, I will go to a school and say, we can run your Duke of Edinburgh's Award expeditions. I mean, normally they're coming to me, but it's that sort of process. Yes, we can run your Duke of Edinburgh's Award expeditions. So any of your kids that are doing D of E, they can do their expeditions with us. So am I able to go to a school and say, actually, we can offer the John Muir Award to your students and come on a 4-day trip, or I doubt many will do a 20-day trip, but certainly I can see them doing the 4-day trip, and we'll do and explaining the John Muir Award and saying, yeah, how about it? Do you want to come and do a John Muir Award? Can we?
Yeah, you can do that
like that.
Yeah, you can say we've put together a program of activities, which will, and if people complete it and with commitment, then they'll get a John Muir at the end. Yeah, absolutely.
That's marvellous. Thank you. Thanks, Graham.
But then the other thing that's worth thinking about is for like the Gold DofE, that the John Muir Award is a perfect aim for
yes,
DofE.
Of course.
It's actually brilliant. I've used it a couple of times and excellent stuff. A quick question, Graham, that came from Mark is, how much does it cost for the membership fee?
Good question.
Yeah, not putting you on the spot, but we'll come back to that one, shall we?
I think there's an organisation.
John's Googled it.
I was going to say individual is £42. It says on your website.
Yeah.
You have to excuse
I think
John's Mr. Google. As we go in things, he'll Google everything, and I think he was a little bit put out earlier by Greg, who actually beat him by putting a link up.
I think John can check this as well. I think the organisational there's a organisational membership which I think is about £75 as well.
Pressure's on you now then, John. We'll come back to you, John. We'll give you a bit of time on that one. Okay, thanks, Graham.
Stick it in the chat there. Yeah. Just going
Group
back.
£60.
£60. Is that right? Great. So just going back to the DofE and the aim of the expedition for a gold expedition. I'm glad you raised that, Dave, actually, because I was talking to some gold DofE assessors group for the Lake District. And one guy was saying he was a bit kind of, he was very disappointed in the way that the kind of project or aims had gone with expeditions. Was he said that they were getting more and more groups coming saying that, you know, our aim is to make a film of our expedition, or our aim is to, you know, produce a blog or something. Whereas he said it used to be that people's aims were to find out more about the place they were traveling through. So he was seeing the award as a way of trying to steer aims towards more of a appreciation of where they are and what they can do. So I think we've probably covered this bit here. So I think where are we going now? We're going to the John Muir Trust. So a little bit about the trust as well. So clearly the award is the part of the engagement side of the John Muir Trust, and particularly aimed at young people. And also, if you remember that map, thinking back to it, the provider organisations were spread across the UK. Whereas if you remember where the properties were, they were very much in Scotland, up in the northwest mainly. So the award is a way of the trust going to where people are, if you like, across the UK. So the trust was founded in 1983, and it was founded as in response to threats to a particular area of wildland, which is Knoydart, which is in this picture here. If people know the area, there's a kind of classic, well, one of the ways of visiting Knoydart is actually to paddle in. I think it's, look, Barrisdale is the, I might be wrong here, no, but it's Barrisdale Bay, which you see in the kind of left of the picture there, and then the loch going into the distance is, if you walk, it's an awful long way to walk, but it's a great paddle in a boat from the road head at the end of the loch to the bothy, which is just on the shores of that bay to access right into the heart of Knoydart. The threat to Knoydart was an estate selling, a private landowner selling it, and the prospect of the Military of Defence buying it. And it being a place which a lot of mountaineers thought of as a particularly special remote place, the prospect of it being barred from access because of military usage was pretty dire for some people, and that was what particularly prompted a group of people to get together and to form the John Muir Trust and to put in a bid to buy that land, backed by some, I don't know whether it would have been lottery funding then, but it was that kind of funding, a large funding bid to secure that. And then they also went into partnership with the Knoydart community to buy a part of it as well. So right from our early days, we've had routes of working with local community as well, which is not always easy at all for a conservation organisation, because quite commonly locals' use of the land doesn't always match what other people's sort of aspirations for the land are. But it's very important to us that we try and work with crofters and locals to kind of to come to a common vision of what that land will be like. So our kind of primary purpose of the John Muir Trust was to protect wild land and particularly the access to it in its very early stages. And this slide actually had a different quote on it, and I thought I'd change it to this quote because when I was introducing the award, and I said right at the start, it's sometimes nature comes back to bite you. I think this quote is more relevant now than it has ever been in my lifetime. If you kind of think of the story that COVID came from our meddling in the natural world kind of line, then it would very much fit that. And the kind of global warming, the whole climate change thing on human impact, yeah, we're finding that everything is hitched to everything else, and it's not always good for us. But it is something that we really have to recognise and work with. So for us, for the John Muir Trust, wild places are really important. So we want to protect them, not just for, well, for a whole variety of reasons, if you like. So we want to protect them for the nature and biodiversity which is there. We want to protect them for what that nature can do for us, and particularly more relevant now is carbon sequestration. So that, you know, peat bogs and woodland cover is really good for carbon sequestration. Woodland cover is good for, and vegetation is good for flood mitigation, all those kind of things. But also because we believe that having wild places is very good for people, for people's well-being, their health and well-being. And perhaps that's something this year which people have recognised, you know, who perhaps hadn't recognised it before, that once you are holed up in your house for a long time, then you desperately need to get out and contact with nature, whether that happens to be in your backyard or whether for many of us who are longing to get out to somewhere a little bit more remote. This is actually in Torridon. It's not on one of our properties, but it's in some pretty beautiful woodland on heading towards the Benay Ridge in Torridon. And this will be part of the Benay National Nature Reserve. And kind of all that thing about being hitched to everything else, John Muir's view was very much that we are part of nature. There isn't man and nature somewhere else. We are part of nature. And we should respect the rest of nature just as much as we respect humanity. So wildness is a kind of at the center of everything we do. And then kind of I talked about communities. So people are important and places important. And then the kind of things around the side of that are the things that we kind of work on. So inspiring and connecting people, protecting and conserving land, and repairing and rewilding. And I'll talk a little bit about each one of those. Clearly connecting, I've talked about the award, and that is one of our main initiatives. We do it in other ways as well. So we have some, excuse me, we have a membership obviously, and we have some members groups. The kind of top right picture is, we have a, trying to remember, it's a kind of basically an Aberdeenshire membership group. This is them doing some conservation work in Glen Tanner. It's not one of our properties. We have a Northwest England membership group who tend to do conservation work in Yorkshire and over in the west of the Lake District, as well as on our Glenridding Common property. It's just a way of getting people to come together and to connect with nature. We run guided walks on our properties, and we run, you know, events. So we have different ways of connecting people with wildness. We work to protect wildland, and that's in different ways. That's less of the actual kind of what we do on the land. I'll come to that. It's more to do with the campaigning work. And so it's kind of interesting to me that when you look at the national parks in Britain, There's only 2 in Scotland, and then there's another 13 in Wales and England. But if you look at a map, which we'll come on to, you have a look and tell me where all the wild land is that needs protecting. So Scotland didn't actually have a very good framework for protecting wildland, and one of the campaigns which the Trust were fairly successful, along with help from other areas, other organisations, was was a campaign for wildland, which put into the Scottish planning framework 34 wildland areas, identifying where there should be particular scrutiny of any development in that area. This mapping was actually done by the University of Leeds, the Wildland Institute there, which kind of mapped out the wildest areas in the UK. So clearly the red is not very wild. It's kind of urban density, if you like. And then you've got the kind of top 10%, the blue, and then the high category of wildland is green. And a common question, which I think I've got a proper answer to here, because I'm never quite sure of how they. So these are based on the remoteness from human settlement and how accessible it is to humans, ruggedness of the landscape. So thinking about the character of the terrain. And is a term which is the biophysical naturalness. I think we'll forget that term. It's kind of what impact have humans had on that land? How much have we changed the natural landscape with man-made structures, such as large-scale wind farms or super quarrying? So we kind of have a criteria, which the University of Leeds have a criteria for what is wildland. And as you'd expect, those wildland areas which we campaign for, there's 34 of them, are tend to be centred on all the blue and green bits in Scotland. It's only in Scotland. It's only in Scotland because in England and Wales, most of what you see there as green is already in national parks. So it's already got some protection. So when I say protect wildland, our work has been about campaigning for protection of wildland in law and that kind of thing. It's also having a voice for wildland. So we ask people what, whether there's whether they think wildland is important to them, and people do tend to agree that wildland is important. So we're kind of giving a voice to people in our lobbying, and we're protecting against large-scale development. And I mean, this is a very good example. We're not anti-wind. We actually want a kind of integrated energy policy, if you like, which will provide for our needs. But we're not for large-scale wind farms, which impact massively. This is the Griffin Wind Farm, which is near Schiehallion, which is in the background, which is one of our properties. So it's kind of having that, it's the tension of having something which on the one hand we think is great because it's providing renewable energy, but it's taking away that sense of wildness, which we think is very important for people's well-being and health. And we think there are other ways of addressing the energy problem. Small scale wind isn't a problem, but large scale like this does tend to have a big impact on landscape. And our headquarters are in Pitlochry and in Edinburgh, so we have easy access to lobby Scottish government. I probably concentrate a lot on Scotland there, partly because of as I've explained, the wildland areas and national parks in England and Wales already giving some protection. There's probably a purely pragmatic thing as well, is that Scottish Parliament is a lot easier to access, being a devolved Parliament with only a certain number of things which it has to deal with. So it's easier to lobby Scottish Parliament than it is to, yeah, it's a big step up to go and lobby UK Parliament. We are a UK charity though, and we are working towards that. So there's there was the conserve and inspire and the protect and connect and inspire and the protect and conserve, and then there's the kind of repair and rewild, if you like. So the repairing damaged land and rewilding, if you like. And I'm not particularly a fan of the rewilding term, but it serves a purpose. And both these pictures are of Knoydart. So Knoydart when we bought it, and Knoydart now. So we worked with the community. We did some planting, and we have established woodland cover there, which is the kind of much more natural environment. So it's not all planted. A lot of it is regeneration as well. And the real key to that is getting the deer numbers down. Deer are actually a woodland species. So there should be woodland there, but if there's too many deer, they will strip it all out, and then they're left in a position where there's too many of them in relation to the woodland and in relation to the food. And in fact, across Scotland, deer numbers are too high for regeneration of natural vegetation. So yeah, we've kind of worked to bring natural processes back and natural environments. We don't see that as a kind of a step back. We see that as enabling the landscape to do what it would normally do under more normal pressure from deer, if you like. We use this term rewilding, and in fact it gets used by a lot of people and in lots of different ways, and opponents of it will immediately shout, oh, you're going to bring back wolves. Well, it took about what was it, 100 years to bring back beavers. I think we're a long way off bringing wolves back. Yes, it's going to be a bit unlikely. And that's not really the point of it. The point of it is to restore a balance of nature. So it's to bring the grazing animals, if you like, the domestic animals, into a balance where nature can actually thrive. And it will require a shift for the people who are involved in that work. But it will actually be very good for us in terms of biodiversity and climate adaptation, and good for people in terms of spiritual value of the countryside as well. We work with partners, so this is one where we have excuse me. We've got East Schiehallion there, which is the kind of green bit in the middle. And so, you know, we only have a certain amount of land, and our aim isn't to buy up land. Our aim is to use our land to demonstrate and persuade other people. And so, in fact, around Schiehallion, we have another 4 different organisations now who are all collaborating to establish more natural cover on the land. So it's about working with other organisations as well. And this is if you look at Knoydart, the bringing back woodland and greater vegetation has brought back all these animals as well. So these were things that weren't really around when the woodland had gone. So there's foxes, water voles, buzzards, different types of eagle. They're both golden eagle and sea eagle there. Roe and red deer, otters, pine marten. and the flourishing ecosystem will allow them back. So again, I talked about the award and the fact that it's free, but you can support us. So I'm just kind of finish off here. The way to find out and to support us now is you could sign up for the newsletter. So there's an e-newsletter which you could sign up to. You could become a member. You could adopt an acre, which is a kind of thing that you can do on our website, and you could make it as a gift. And one of the things we're doing this year, just kicked off actually, is a journey for the wild. So we're asking people to plan their own journey and to get sponsored to do that journey, whether that happens. I mean, we've had people doing the London Marathon in the past, but we've also had people doing all sorts of more remote things. We had a chap who did all the Munros and used that as a kind of fundraising expedition for us. Yeah, so a little bit about the trust there, and I'm going to leave it there and ask for any questions. So probably best if shall I stop sharing now, Dave?
Yes, please. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have got a couple of questions. John, you've got a question. If you dive on first. If anybody else has got any questions, they can put them in the chat, please. Would appreciate that.
Yeah, hello. Quick question, sort of on the back of Ben's conversation, if you like. With the certificates, are they only obtainable from yourselves kind of after people have completed the award, or as a provider, can you hold onto certificates and give those out to participants? I'm thinking in maybe a residential setting where you've got a group of kids for a week, maybe a few days. You want to be able to give them something to kind of go away with, rather than something sort of turning up, I don't know, a couple of weeks later or something like that. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, John. My tone probably guessed the answer. We tend to we don't do it, but people find ways around that. So a couple of examples. So Cumbria Outdoors, I mean, they're dealing with schools who are often tend to be in Cumbria, and they actually go along to the school after the visit and present the certificates. That's very easy for them because they're not a long way away, and for them it means they maintain a contact with the school by having one of their staff go to the school. So they see that as a way around that. Outward Bound, who deal with schools all over the country, we send the certificates straight out to the school. I know that one thing that some people do is that they I'm not saying they design a certificate, but they produce something which they can give at the end from their own centre to kind of wrap that up, and then the certificate will be sent out later.
Yeah, that was something I was thinking of. Yeah, as you were talking, basically to do it that way around. Yeah, interesting, I guess, really. Yeah, my other quick question was going to your sort of slightly off topic for myself, or my thoughts, is just looking at your website for the families and the individuals. Have you found any problems with people or a lack of sign up due to proposal forms that you've got to fill out? I'm used to filling out proposal forms, that kind of stuff. It's kind of a bit of what I do for work, but is that I don't know, it just feels from a family point of view that might be a little bit complicated or overly bureaucratic, if you like, for just son, daughter, or whatever it is to kind of achieve that. I don't know, it's a conversational piece I'm thinking of.
No, you're absolutely right. It is, and I suppose 98% of our awards are achieved through organisations. So the families who sign up are very commonly home educating families who are willing to put in the kind of, well, they tend to be doing the planning of what they're going to do, and so it isn't a big mission for them to put in a form. But you're absolutely right. It doesn't attract the kind of family who it doesn't attract many. You need to be fairly happy about doing those forms. There's another way around that, is that we have some organisations who work with families. So what's been particularly good during lockdown actually is the New Forest National Park, is they run a John Muir Family Award. So actually they put in the proposal form, and what they're doing is they're actually doing a kind of remote delivery of it. They're sending activities out to all the families who are registered each week for them to do something during the week. And then they have an online session at the end of the week and say, what did you do this week? And, you know, send something out for the next week. So yeah, we kind of encourage, we really like the idea of organizations engaging families that way, because to be honest, we work with about 1,500 providers, and you know, some of them are sending in proposal forms fairly frequently. We don't have the admin capacity if we suddenly had lots of individual families sending them in. So it's not actually a market we've kind of been, unless it comes through an organisation, in which case we're really happy about it. Individual families, it's probably quite difficult for us to kind of cope with. You know, if demand went up through the roof, it would be very difficult for us to cope with. Good question.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's just as I was listening to you talk and just poking around the website at the same time, it's just kind of a thought, you know, that kind of get that engagement piece going with families and then lead them on into the sort of, I don't know, bigger, more complicated aspects of the award, perhaps, maybe. But yeah, no, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think we've got another question from Graham, looking at the chat list.
John, I think Sarah's going to ask a question for John.
Okay.
Yes, Graham was just wondering, is your land accessible to the general public?
Absolutely, yeah, it's all open to the public. I mean, yeah, if you think back to Knoydart, one of the reasons we bought it was to secure access for the public. So yeah, it's all open to be enjoyed.
Just going back to Ben, I know you've got a question to go next, please, but if I could just put this, Sarah beat John with her trawling around the website and has found your corporate membership, and the corporate membership is over, John's nodding his head, he's gonna say, oh, I found that, and it's over 4 levels. So bronze level is £300 a year, silver 600, gold is £1,200 a year, and then the John Muir Trust Peak Partners is 5,000 a year. So I suppose that'll be the one you'll be looking at, Ben. Obviously working London schools and that.
Whoa! You want to know what sort of year I've just had?
That's the that's corporate membership. That's not organisation membership.
I'll get the New York office to pay the £5,000 one.
But Graham, so if a business like Ben's or ours wanted to become a partner to be able to use the logo, would we need to join the bronze corporate membership?
No. So if you were using the award, you become a recognised provider. If you put in a proposal form, you run the award with a group, and that all goes satisfactorily, you become a recognised provider. You can have, if you want, a provider's certificate, and you can stick our logo on your website. Brilliant, thank you for that. The corporate membership is, I mean, I don't know, Ben might have a massive business, but it's for the kind of Tyzos and the Berghaus and the Nevis whiskey distillery, and I mean, having said that, there are some outdoor companies in there. I think Wilderness Scotland is a corporate member at one level or another. I'm not sure which. I imagine the bronze. I'd be surprised if they're at the top level. Yeah.
Thank you. Ben, you ask your question.
Yeah, just I'm definitely not at that level. This is the size of my office, so I'm certainly not at that sort of size.
Same size as mine at the moment.
Yeah. Just a very quick question about timing. So if I basically, let's use the 4-day trip that you talked about earlier. Does that have to be 4 consecutive days, or could it be 2 weekends, for example, or even 4 Saturdays?
It can be very flexible. So commonly schools who do the award at school will do it over the whole term, maybe even over the whole year. they might do 8 afternoons, they might do a whole range of different sessions. So the time can be made up in the way that you want it to be. What I would say is the time needs to be outdoors, connecting with nature. It's not a classroom, you know, so I mean, you're not a school, but if you're a school, it's not an academic subject. It's you know, it's kind of, it's a connection with nature, and that means a hands-on kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great. Really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Just as an aside, I had a family do the award recently who've taken 6 years to do it. And each year I kind of say, "Are you still doing this?" And they say, "Oh yeah, we'll get around to it. You know, we've done a bit more." And then lockdown kind of gave them the impetus to kind of think, "Oh right, we're going to finish it off now." And I kind of thought, "Oh, that's probably it." And then I sent them. I kind of said, "Okay, send me a certificate request form, and we'll get the certificate sorted out." And they got them, and they immediately sent me a proposal form for the next level up. I said, "I'll hear from you again in 6 years' time."
You can't rush a good thing, can you? You know, if you're going to do it right. Can I just ask a quick question of the audience, really? Having listened to what Graham said about the John Muir Award, are you more inclined now to use it with your groups? Do you think you'd use it more? Yeah. Oh, Nat's not 100% sure. Do you want to unmute yourself, Matt and Nat? And I called it. No, you don't. No, that's not like you not to want to talk. Anybody else got any questions for Graham? Okay, well, no more questions coming in. Nobody's sort of waving at me. So thanks very much, Graham. Really interesting chat. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
I think Graham Fisher's trying to do it, but he can't.
Oh, there you go. Ruth's got a question.
Ruth's got a question. Sorry.
And Graham Fisher.
Graham Fisher wants to talk.
Okay, we'll do Ruth first, please. Hello, Ruth. We can see your ceiling. There we go. Have you got? Do you want to ask your question? You unmute yourself.
Or we can ask it for you.
Or do you want to ask? Do you want to ask it? Do you want us to do it for you? You're going to unmute yourself. Bottom left-hand side.
Oh there. Yes, I use this all the time.
It shows.
I'm a zimmer. I'm a chief zimmer.
Do you want to ask your question?
Oh yes. I'm a member of a kayaking club, but I'm also a paddleboarder. What way does the award work with the water sports?
Okay. Well, it kind of, if you have a range of activities you do in your kayak or on your paddleboard, which involve you in going places, so appreciating where you go, special qualities, discover challenge, exploring it in some way, making a journey, having a look at the marine environment, and you're putting something back, maybe a beach litter sweep or that kind of thing, and then sharing that with your canoe club or paddle club or through some other forum, then you've got the shape of an award. So absolutely it could work with a kayak group. I had a group, I think it was Dudden Canoe Club used the award a few years ago. It's not a common thing. We don't have a lot of canoe clubs do it. In fact, I often wish that more clubs would take it up. I had a kind of particular champion who had worked in outdoor education, who kind of recognised the value of not only introducing people to kayaking, but also getting to think about where they were doing it, and that worked well. Yeah, so absolutely you can work in for a kayaker or a paddleboarder or whatever.
Okay, brilliant. Just Graham, a quick question, is it? I need to be quick. Is he going to unmute himself, or should we?
Hello, hi Graham.
Hi there.
Hello, good evening to you. Thank you first of all for letting me invite and join your chat. Again, fantastic organisation. The main thing is you don't charge the end users, the client. As soon as there's a penny, it can push a lot of people out from joining in and experiencing what your organisation is. So some of the projects I do is never charged to the client. It's an absolute must of mine. Other people absorb the costs, the client don't. So absolute bravo to you. My question is, well, I do work a lot with the National Trust. I've got my CS chainsaw licenses, etc. Do you use voluntary land managers, people who have come up, not particularly to work with your client at that end, but people who are happy to come up and do land management for you, etc.?
Yep. So we have volunteer work parties on our properties. So yeah, you can join in with those. We're actually kind of reviewing how they work at the moment, and the other aspect to it, in the last year, we've not really been able to run much in the way of volunteering. So yeah, that's our main. We have some of the examples I could give. We have some volunteers who live nowhere near our properties and will come for a weekend or a week's volunteer work party. The other thing we have is people who are very close to our properties who get involved more regularly. I mean, kind of one of the ones I really like is at Glenridding. The crags on Helvellyn are very important for Arctic alpines, and we have a whole load of people in the community who are propagating these Arctic alpine plants from seeds collected off the crags, so that we can then take those out and replant, and plant more of them. So that it's kind of genetically it's local seed, and it's enabling the spread of these Arctic alpines. So we have some very local specific volunteers, if you like. Thanks for the question. Good question.
Lovely. Thanks very much. I'm going to bring it to a close now. So thank you very much, Graham, for your chat tonight. Really interesting, and as Gary said, yeah, very thought-provoking, and has definitely given something to think about as an aim for DofE. So thanks very much, Graham.
This was a With Dave production.